Welcome to the Women in Publishing Summit, another fantastic segment about to go down before your very eyes. I'm Alexa Bigwharf, your host, and today we are going to be in this session talking all about book launches and successfully launching your book. This is such an important topic because of many, many reasons, but obviously if you're writing a book, you want people to buy it, and your first escape out the gate, if you will, is so important to get right. Now, it's really important to have a good strategy put in place, and it's a strategy that you want to start thinking about long before the actual book launch. So today we're interviewing a woman who is an expert in book launches and marketing. We've got Belinda Griffin. She's the founder of smartauthorsLab.com. She helps authors launch best-selling books with impact so they can make the difference that they are here to make. As one of Tim Grall's certified book launch coaches, Belinda offers expert guidance as well as practical done-for-you and done-with-you support to help you plan your first or next launch. And if you're newer to the book industry, that name Tim Grall may not mean anything to you, but I'm sure we'll talk about him, and if not, I'll put a link to his website so that you can see who he is. But she's been trained by him, and he's a leader in the self-publishing world. So let's see. Belinda also helps writers to grow and nurture their all-important author platforms, both before and after publication. You can connect with her on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/Belinda K. Griffin with 2 I's, Griffin, and follow her on Twitter at Smart Authors. We'll have all these links in the show notes so that people can definitely connect with you, because I'm sure they're going to want to after this interview. Thank you, Belinda.
Thanks for the welcome. That was great.
Yeah. So we are covering global book launches, and then the difference between publishing and launching, which is a key distinction. It really is. And a lot of people don't think about it. They think about their launch day as the day they publish, but maybe not all the other elements that have to happen. So I'm looking forward to digging into that. And well, let's do it. Let's start there, actually, the difference between publishing and launching the book.
Sure. So publishing, as you might imagine, is when you upload your book to Amazon and you press that button or flick the switch or whatever it is to actually make it live and people can buy it. So you are a published author. Brilliant. Well done. That's something a lot of people don't ever get to do. So that's a real achievement. But if you do nothing else but flick that switch, then what's going to happen from there is you just disappear into obscurity. So, so publishing is making it available, and then launching really is everything you do. It's when you start making people aware that it's there and actually send people to the Amazon page, or if you're selling on your own website, sending people to actually go and buy your book. So that's what I mean by launching, is actually letting people know that it exists, that it's there. And everything you do as part of letting people know it exists and it's there and they should buy it is part of your launch. So that can actually happen. Ideally, that happens before publication. You start telling them about this launch date, but it can happen after as well. Launching is when you're telling people that it's available. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that I have seen, or actually just personal experience, like when I started this journey, my first couple books, like I was literally finishing the books and hitting publish on my launch day, because we were just, whirlwind to the finish. And that is such a bad idea for so many reasons. Such a bad idea. Like ideally you do want to have your book completed, all the quirks and everything, figured out. You'll want to have seen a print proof and all of these things. So how far out then do you start considering your launch, and what types of things do you need to be doing for a successful one?
Sure. Okay. So I'll just touch on that really briefly, what you just said about hitting the button and that being it, that you can have like a soft launch and a I don't even think it's a hard launch. Everyone talks about soft launch. I don't know what the opposite is called. But
yes.
So Your soft launches, you can make it live, you can make sure everything's working, you can make sure all your links are working and all of that stuff, but not tell anyone about it. So that's like a little quiet launch. You're just testing things. And then the real launch is when you actually tell people. So ideally, if it's your first book, you're an unknown author, and so far you have no platform, you have no connections. And I'm resisting saying this because everyone will scream and hate me. Ideally, you'd be doing that like, I don't know, 2 years in advance, like maybe even written the book. I can just feel
not what I expected to hear. That
I can feel the hate. I can feel it. That is not going to happen for most people. So if you've done this a couple of times and you kind of know what you've got to do, and you've got a little bit of platform and things like that, then ideal world, I'd say 6 months. Definitely three to six, because what you're going to be wanting to do as part of your launch is things like guest blogs or getting on podcast interviews, and they often need to be booked sort of 6 months in advance, because bloggers and podcasters are busy. They have their schedules set way in advance. So you want to be operating about 6 months in advance, just to make sure that they can fit you in, so that ideally your podcast and interview would go live on your launch week. So although if you're working in a bubble and it's just up to you, then you could do it in a few weeks. But because you're working with other people, then I'd say 6 months. If you are starting from scratch and you have nothing, and you haven't got 2 years until the book comes out, then I recommend that you're kind of continuing to launch after publication. So you don't have to do it all up front. You'd continue trying to launch that book after publication.
Right. So before we move on, I think it is important to just take a moment and talk about why you would suggest 2 years. And I mean, I've seen this as well. People assuming that it's going to be really easy to build their community and their audience as soon as they finish their book. Like, it should just be like something that they do. So let's talk about, for you, like, why 2 years?
So I would say 2 years because, it's those relationships that you're building, and also ideally an email list. Now, a lot of people resist the idea of building an email list. So we'll just assume you've got your head around that and you're going to do it. It's not easy. It's not something you can build overnight. And quite often ways that you build it is by working with other people so they can help spread the message. And to work with those people, you need to build relationships. So it's a bit like, I think the thing, I was speaking to a traditional publishing person recently, and they were saying, I just think authors don't realize the amount of time and effort they need to put in ahead of launch or publication to build the relationships. And that's really what it all comes down to, is you're asking favors of people, and that's regardless of how you've been published, whether you're self-published or trade published. You're asking bloggers to blog about your book. You're asking people to send their newsletter something about your book. And people, even when they like you and they want to support you, they often forget, they don't have time, all of these other things. So if you're asking out of the blue a complete stranger to do something for you, then you're going to struggle. So you need that time to kind of build those relationships, and to build an email list, to build a platform. So that's why I say you can do it after publication, because you can carry on doing that.
Sure.
You can use your book to help you do that. So there are other ways to launch a book. There are other things you can do, particularly around paid advertising and things like that, which can be much faster, because you're spending money rather than time. But if you want to build that solid platform that's really going to support your entire author career, then you're looking at investing time.
Yeah. And, and the thing that I was just thinking about is that while there are ways to rapidly grow an email list and rapidly grow a social media following, usually the things that get people to do that super quickly are like giveaways or what we may result in 10,000, 15,000 followers, but they don't care at all about your book. They care about the Kindle Fire that you just said that you would give them or enter them into a giveaway with if they gave you your email address, so that's important to note too. Whereas this process that you've just described, I mean, it's truly building relationships and taking that time to build the right audience so that when you do launch your book or try to sell your book, then you have people that are actually genuinely interested in buying that book.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I when I first started working with authors, and I knew my stuff with marketing. Some of the little nitty gritty things I didn't really understand. So they started talking to me about these promo sites. Mm-hmm. And a client would say to me, should I use Bargain Booksy or something like that? And I'd be like, I don't really know what you're talking about, which I felt was like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be doing this. I don't know anything. But now I understand those promo sites, and it makes no difference to me. Mm-hmm. That, yeah, you can use them if you want to kind of help. Mm-hmm. But when you use promo sites, there's different ways you can either use them and get a bunch of sales, which might be nice, but you have no way of keeping in touch with those buyers. Right. Or you might use one that allows you to collect email addresses, but as you say, those email subscribers have no interest in you personally. They've signed up for like getting free books.
Right.
So as soon as you collect them, they unsubscribe again. And yeah, I've heard of people that have built a massive list almost overnight, and then they said they sent an email and they all left.
Or they give a junk email, and you may have an open rate of like 1%. I mean, what does that do you? Then you're just paying for email lists every month,
Yeah, exactly.
What's really interesting is that I do actually really, I like using the promo sites, particularly around like a relaunch or a particular campaign to get a bunch of downloads to play with the Amazon systems and get the books higher on the categories and all that jazz. How you can work lots of different things in different ways. But one of the interesting things is to actually pay attention to what happens after the day. And it's very, very, it's just what you're saying. Like, they come because it was a free book download or a 99-cent book download. Most of them actually, you get a lot less on the 99 cents because they actually have to pay. But on the free downloads, I've seen, 5,000 people download a book in one day. And then over the course of the next 6 months, you can see that only like 200 pages of the book were ever read, because you can track how many pages read, right? For those of you who don't know. So it's like, okay, clearly there's a bunch of people that just go for free, and it doesn't, will it give you a good boost at the time? Yes. And that may be what you need in order to do some other things, but a little bit off topic there, but just this idea of when you're looking to build that audience is going for the fast, easy route, basically buying your audience the right way to do it. And I think Belinda and I are both saying, no, you can do it if you just need to have an email list of 15,000 people so that you can tell somebody you have an email list of 15,000 people, but it's not going to convert to book sales.
Yeah, exactly. And even if they stay on your list, if there's someone that only got there because they want free things, then when you try and sell them the next book, they're not going to be interested unless you're running a free promo. So they're just tire kickers. And the more people you have on your list, the more you have to pay your list providers. So you don't want them there. It's just not helpful. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I would guess that there, as you were just talking, it sparked the idea in me. And this is one of those ideas I'm like, why didn't I ever think of this before? Like, why don't we spend more time building the author platform with maybe our first like short book that's not the big book, and then once we have that author platform, go gung ho with the good book instead of wasting. I don't know. So okay, let's just back it up here, and we'll try and relate it to where our audience might be. So they're in the process of writing their first book. They are almost done writing it. This is live in March. They're thinking they're going to publish their book in April, and they've just heard you say they should have started marketing 2 years ago. What do we do?
It's really bad. I'm sorry, guys. You use that book to launch that platform, to start building that platform. So you can pitch yourself to podcasts and blogs and things like that and say, I've written this book. I think your audience would be interested in it because XYZ, and once you're on that podcast, you can then invite people to sign up for your list. You have something, I'm sure, on one of your other presentations you've got about list building that might talk about giving some free incentive for people to sign up. So you can invite people to join your list, and then you can start marketing to them, and you can tell them about this book, and you can tell them about any future books that you might have. So really with, if your book is about out like tomorrow and you haven't done anything on platform building, then you do exactly what you would do for any other launch, but you're just doing it afterwards, and you're just using the book as the hook to try and start building that platform. Other than that, it's the same as launching ahead of the book coming out. Yeah, I can't remember what I was going to say.
It's all right. I probably took you down a whole different road that you weren't planning on talking about. So one of the things that you, we could start going through all kinds of lists of things that people could be doing to launch, but we can get into that. Just kind of, I think you've come prepared with a few tips that we can wrap up at the end that may walk us through some of that. But rather than going through a full list of all the things, you actually mentioned to me that you don't have to do all the things. So can you just talk a little bit about that? Like, what are the most, the things with the most impact, the best things, so that you can focus on those areas and not waste your time spread too thin?
Yeah. So whether you're launching or whether you're just doing your general all the time marketing, you don't want to be doing everything. No one can do everything, and it drives you insane. And this is why authors tell me they hate marketing or they don't want to do it. So I would say stop doing all the things. The key for me, and we've talked about it before, is those relationships. So you want to be building your email list, and you want to be building relationships, if you can, with other kinds of influencers, other people who can help you spread the word. So that might be other authors, that might be authors a little bit ahead of you in this whole publishing process. Things you can do would be, I think, really key things. So you want to find ways that people can find out you exist. That's your number one thing, right, as an author, is letting people know you exist. So, and you also want to provide them with value. You don't want to just be shouting it on Twitter and that kind of thing. You want to provide value. So I think guest blogs and podcasting are really, really good for doing that. You borrow someone else's audience and you get in front of them and you say, hey, I'm here. This is why you should be interested in me. Kind of not in a salesy way, but in a value-based way. So this comes back to that. If you're building that email list and you've got that free incentive for people to sign up to your list. So this is always easier for non-fiction authors in the sense of, so if, for example, I could give away some tips on launching, great. If I've written a fiction book, that can be a little bit harder, but what do people want to know? What are they interested in? What have you got a side story about characters and that kind of thing? Offer value. That is the key thing, to offer value, and people are interested, they come back, they want to know more. You're not just trying to sell your book to them. So always take it up a level to how can I reach more people? How can I get in front of my target readers? Don't get bogged down in like the free promo sites and should I be wide or exclusive. Don't get bogged down in all of those little details. Like, they are important, and they can, things like promo sites, yes, they can be used as part of a holistic strategy. But always be thinking, where are my readers? How can I get in front of them? That's the key thing. And that's whether you're launching or you're just generally trying to build your platform. I think that's really, really key. Yeah.
You mentioned to me that different authors you shouldn't be doing a cookie cutter type launch plan. What are the different types of launch plans that people might want to consider, and what works best for maybe different genres?
Yeah. So, definitely the number one thing is not to try and do a launch plan because some author you heard of or a friend in a writer's group followed a particular launch and that worked for them. You have to play to your strengths. So if you have an email list, definitely use that as part of your launch. You want to run a campaign. You don't want to just drop one little email that says, oh, hey, would you like to buy my next book? You kind of want to think through a campaign that runs over a few days and offers different types of value and talks about your book in different ways. If you have connections to any kind of influencers like we talked about before, then you want to use those. So for example, I could go, Alexa, hey, I've got a book coming out. Do you want to tell your list about it?
Yeah, do you want to do this?
But Alexa might say, no, I don't want to do that. Why should I do that? So you always got to be thinking some kind of value. What would the other person get out of them doing that? Maybe somebody has a podcast that you know, and you could say, can I be on your podcast? So when I trained with Tim Grohl, so he said we'll talk about him. So Tim is amazing. He's all over book launches. He's at booklaunch.com. So he's got that URL. I can't take that one. And he talks about 4 different launches. So you've got your bestseller launch, you've got your influencer launch, you've got your list launch, and you've got your long game launch. So your bestseller launch is when you're trying to hit one of those bestseller lists and you do everything. So you've got an email list and you're running email campaigns to them. You've got connections to influencers and you're asking them to help you promote your book. You're doing everything and you're trying to do it in launch week. So that's like the really hardcore launch, which you probably don't want to do on your first or second book. You want to have some experience probably before you do that. Then you've got the influencer launch, which is you're using influencers to help you promote your book. So you're using bloggers, podcasters, other authors who might have a list, basically connections to other people who can help you, who have an audience. So if you don't have your own audience, that's not a problem if you know people who do. And that's why we kind of suggest you want to be making those connections earlier rather than later, because you can't just ask like 2 weeks before your launch. So if you have those connections, if you've been building them, then you can do that. The list launch, obviously, is if you've got an email list and then you want to be asking your list to, first of all, buy your book. Then you want to be asking them to leave a review. And you also want them to be sharing it on social media, because that's where social media can work really well, is that if it's tough for you to be tweeting about your book and it not sound really salesy. But if you get everyone else to tweet about your book, then that's great. And you reach far more people. So you can use your list for those 3 different things. And then the last one is the long game launch. And that's what we've talked about, that if you don't have any of these things, use the book to try and build that platform, and just you keep promoting that book until the next book comes out. Like, it just doesn't stop. You're just always trying to get on podcasts, trying to get on blogs, and just talk about your writing, talk about your book.
Right. That's an interesting, a good point too. Like when you're approaching podcasts and bloggers and things like that, like the approach you don't want to take is, hey, I've just written a book. Can I come talk to your audience about it? Because a lot of people are writing books. What suggestions do you have for how people do build these relationships and approach other people? I mean, you mentioned the whole, you could contact your friend and say, hey, do you want to write about my book? But most people are going to be like, not really. I mean, it's got to be more interesting. My audience is going to be like, snore. We just heard 17 other authors, Yeah,
exactly. So there's got to be something in it for them. Like, you've got to have something's going to help them. So maybe it's a swap. Maybe you have a podcast as well, which is fairly successful, and you're happy to have them on yours. So there could be a reciprocal thing. If that's not the case, then it's really about building up a relationship over a period of time. So first of all, you might on social media just be sharing their content and kind of liking their stuff, and kind of not just, partly you're trying to let them get to know you, but it may not work. But it's also, you are helping them, you're sharing their stuff, you're doing something useful. You may start slowly, you might just drop them an email and say, I saw your last blog post and I really loved it, and these are the things I got out of it. Not asking for anything, you're just kind of starting a conversation. And then you may, if it's a blog and they accept guest posts, then absolutely pitch. You don't necessarily have to have a relationship beforehand to pitch. You can just say, as long as it's something that's got value for the audience. So you want to have done a bit of research, make sure that the audience would be interested in whatever you're pitching. Most bloggers, I think, are quite grateful for someone else to kind of write something and take the pressure. So I definitely recommend that. Podcasts are even better in that you don't have to even sit down and write anything. You just have a conversation. So that's great. So that's helping them because you're providing some kind of content. You're helping them out. I would basically always be helping, trying to help other people out, give them what they need, provide value, help them out with something. Do not ask for anything to begin with. And then maybe there will come a point where you can ask. You can, even if you haven't got anything right then, that you can say, I'll do this instead, or this is what you'll get out of it. If you've been giving for a long time, then hopefully they will be quite willing to help you out. If it's a big blogger or podcaster or something, then that might not work because they just have so many people that are asking them for things. So then you need to stand out. You need to have a really good pitch. That's kind of the...
I remember hearing one of my friends talk about when she launched her book. For those of you who are bloggers and have been in the blogging community for a while, you probably recognize the bloggess. Her name is Jenny. I just forgot her last name. Anyway, she has very, very famous. She's like the first massively followed blogger, right? And so a lot of people are asking for a lot of things. So my friend Marcia wrote her book, and one of the things that she had learned, she'd done her research, she really wanted an endorsement from Jenny, the bloggess. And she had done her research and knew that she had a thing for like taxidermy or like stuffed animals or things like that or whatever. So she actually sent her like a stuffed animal, not like a kid's stuffed animal, but like a once living animal that had been stuffed and preserved, however, a taxidermy type thing. Like she mailed her this animal with a copy of her book and asked her to please endorse her. And she went for it. She was like, this is phenomenal. This is like somebody knowing me, who really knows what interests me, and like getting, down into it. So I think sometimes when it comes to approaching people that have massive audiences and that are constantly being asked for things, I mean, it's important. It's one tweet by somebody with that level of following. I can't even imagine what would happen to my podcast for moms if Reese Witherspoon were to send out one tweet or one Instagram message about my platform, my books, my, whatever. So it's important to have that kind of stuff, but you have to like really think outside of the box and how you get their attention.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to do your research and stand out as well. So definitely do your research. You don't want to be sending stuffed animals to anybody. They've got to want that kind of thing.
I mean, it was so crazy. I remember when she posted that she'd gotten it, like she was like, "You'll never believe what I did," and she said yes, and it was crazy. But she got her endorsement, and and is friends with that person now who has a lot of influence.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important to recognize the level of work that goes into it. Like it's not, you can just sort of tweet everybody, or you can just fire off emails that aren't really personalized and you might get somewhere, but actually these things take a lot of effort, a lot of research, a lot of work. So I know that the authors listening to this are willing to put the work in once they know what the work is.
Right.
But yeah, there's not really a shortcut to platform building. It is.
Right.
Well,
I assure you, if you mail me a dead armadillo, I'm putting out a restraining order on you, not endorsing your book. So you have to know what you're doing. Like the research is key.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Okay. Well, we are getting close to the end of our time here. I would love it if you would just give us your couple of best tips for someone trying to plan their first book launch.
Sure. So I think we made it loud and clear that you, number one, need to start as early as possible. Yeah, ideal world, if you're watching this 2 years ahead of actually writing the book, then great. I guess most people aren't, so don't go and cry in the corner somewhere that all is not lost. You can continue promoting your book for long after it comes out to boost your platform and to also make book sales. But if you can do it early, plan your launch early. Number two, I would say, I know you've got another interview on this, but get to know your reader. That's really key, so that when you're choosing those blogs and podcasts that you want to be on, that you find the ones that your readers are watching. So you're getting in front of the right people. So if go and watch that other interview and find out how to find your target reader. I think that's really, really important. And then finally, use the right launch strategy for you. So I've talked about the 4 book launches. You've got the bestseller launch, the influencer launch, the list launch, and the long game launch. Play to your strengths. If you've got a list, use it. If you haven't, do the long game launch. If you've got connections, use them. And if you've got everything, go for it. Go for a bestseller launch.
Absolutely. Everybody should check out Angela J. Ford's interview too. She talks about some great, she really gets into some of the things that she's used as an author that are outside of the box marketing tactics and partnering with other authors for like newsletter list swaps and things like that have been really, really helpful for her. So that's another good one. But this has been great information. And I think it's just, I think the more that we can help remind people that the reality is, no matter how good your book is, if you just publish it without a bunch of fanfare and a bunch of work, just putting it on Amazon is not enough. You will get buried quickly on Amazon. Yeah. And I think the other thing to point out is that I do like the long game approach, and then that your comments on that it can be done and trickled out over time. I think that's really important for everybody too, because even if you have a massive launch, the moment you stop promoting, your sales also stop. Yes. So it's important to know it's the long game, whether that's your strategy or not.
Yeah. I just pick up on that really quickly because so the reason why trade published books have a launch is and why they have to sell all those books straight off and really, really fast is because it's all to do with like where they're stocked and keeping in the bookshops and all of that stuff. As an indie, if you're not trying to get in bookstores, not a problem. You don't have to worry about it. You don't need to have all of those right in that first week. Obviously it helps with your algorithms and all of that stuff with Amazon, but you can keep selling forever, ever. You've got that flexibility, so don't panic.
Yeah, absolutely. Way to end it on the positive note after we scared them with you're way behind schedule. Great information. Will you please remind everybody where they can best find you if they want to reach out with questions or for more support?
Sure. So they can visit my website, smartauthorslab.com. I have got a little bit of a guideline on the 4 book launches on there as well. You can go to smartauthorslab.com/launch. And you can find me on Twitter at smartauthors. That's probably the best place. So we'll keep it short, keep it as that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time and all these great tips.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.